I left work early that Friday, hoping for a quiet evening with my parents. It had been a hard week, meetings, deadlines, a broken coffee machine, and a boss who thought urgent meant drop everything now. I thought maybe I'd surprise them with some takeout, something cozy. For once, I was in a good mood, and I wanted to share it. I even remember smiling as I pulled into the driveway, carrying bags of food in both hands. The house looked the same from the outside, calm, still. But the moment I stepped through the front door, something felt off. It was too quiet, but not empty. You know that weird silence that feels like something's happening somewhere you're not supposed to be? That was it. I called out, "Mom?
Dad."
No answer. Then I heard it, soft thumps upstairs. Movement. For a second, I wondered if someone had broken in. My heartbeat picked up as I slowly climbed the stairs, stepping lightly. That's when I saw it. Boxes. Everywhere. Half my bedroom was packed up. My bookshelf was empty. Clothes were folded neatly in a suitcase I didn't remember opening. My high school trophies were gone from the top shelf. And in the middle of it all was my mom, sitting cross-legged on the floor, folding my sweaters like she was doing laundry. She looked up, startled but not guilty. Just awkward.
"Oh."
"Claire," she said, almost too cheerfully. "We didn't expect you home so early." I stared at her. What is this?" She smiled, that tight smile she uses when she's trying to act calm. "We were just helping you pack. For your move." I blinked. What move? Behind me, I heard the sound of something heavy dragging across the garage floor.
"Dad."
He was probably moving boxes too.
"I don't understand," I said.
"What move?" "I never said I was moving." Mom stood up slowly, brushing lint off her pants like this was completely normal. "Sweetheart, we found you a nice studio apartment. Just a short drive from here. We thought it'd be good for you. You know, some independence." Independence? I laughed, except it came out more like a confused cough. "Wait, you thought it'd be good for me?" Without talking to me.
"We were going to," she said.
"We just figured we'd get started to make it easier." Make it easier? I stepped into the room, looking at my half-empty closet, the piles of my life being sorted and taped shut. None of this was normal. None of this felt like love. "So, you started packing my life without telling me? You found me an apartment I didn't ask for? You're just what? Moving me out?" She didn't answer right away. She just sighed, like she was tired. "Claire, it's time. You've been here for a while now." I felt like the floor moved under me. I had come home after my breakup. I had lost my job. I was supposed to be here to heal, to rest. Was I really here too long? Was this their way of saying I had worn out my welcome? I walked downstairs, trying to catch my breath. I peeked into the garage. Dad was hauling plastic bins toward the door.
He didn't even notice me.
I didn't know what to think. I felt small and invisible. I pulled out my phone and texted Maya. "You won't believe what I just walked into." But even as I hit send, a terrible thought hit me. If they were already packing, if they'd already picked a place, how long had this been planned? And why didn't they tell me? Something wasn't right. Something didn't add up. I stood in the hallway, still clutching the phone in my hand, the text to Maya unread. The smell of the takeout was starting to turn my stomach. My mind kept spinning. How long had they been planning this? And why did I feel like the last person to know anything about my own life? I walked back upstairs, slower this time, hoping this was some weird misunderstanding. But the boxes were still there. My mother was now wrapping my desk lamp in bubble wrap, like it was completely normal to evict your daughter under the label of help. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "you said you found me a studio. Where is it?" She brightened, too fast.
"Oh."
"It's only 15 minutes away. Very safe area. One bedroom, well, more like a big room, but cozy. The landlord seems nice." I stared at her. "When did you even start looking?" She paused. That was the first time she looked uncomfortable. "A few weeks ago. Your father and we've been thinking this would be a good step for you." A good step? It felt more like a push. I walked to my bookshelf, now empty except for some loose dust and a framed photo of me at age 10 holding a soccer trophy. That picture used to mean something. Now, it just looked like a memory being boxed up.
You didn't ask me, I said.
You didn't even ask. Dad walked in, wiping sweat from his forehead. It's not that we don't love you, Claire. We just thought maybe you were getting a little too comfortable here. Too comfortable.
The words hit me like a slap.
I remembered when I moved back, after James left, after the job interviews dried up. I had cried in this very room. I had asked them if it was okay to come home. They said yes. They said of course. Too comfortable. I said slowly.
So, this isn't about helping me.
This is about getting rid of me. Don't be dramatic, Mom said, her voice thin. You've been here nearly 7 months. And I told you I was applying to new jobs. I told you I was getting back on my feet. We thought this would help, Dad cut in. You're still young. This is a chance to be on your own again. Did you sign a lease? I asked suddenly, the question leaping out of me before I could stop it. They both froze. The silence was my answer. You signed a lease, I whispered. You signed a lease for me, without even asking. We were going to tell you this weekend, Mom said, her voice soft. It's already paid for. We've even started moving some of your things over. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was the only thing I could do to keep from screaming. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door, ignoring their calls behind me. I sat in my car, windows rolled up, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. Maya picked up on the first ring. Claire? They signed a lease, I said. They're moving me out without me. They already packed half my stuff. There was silence, then a slow, angry exhale. What the hell? I looked back at the house, the place that was supposed to be safe. I had never felt like more of a stranger in my own life. Can you come with me? I asked. I need to see this place. This studio. Because if they'd already moved my things, if they'd already made this choice without me, what else had they decided? And what were they really hiding? I didn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. No matter how many times I replayed the conversation, the packing, the lease, they all pointed to one thing. This wasn't something my parents did on impulse. It was a plan. And I was the only one not invited into it. The next morning, Maya picked me up. I didn't even pack a bag. I just wanted to see it, the studio. The place I was apparently moving into without my consent. It felt like walking into a story someone else had written for me. The drive was quiet at first. Then Maya said, "What do you think we'll find?" "I don't know," I replied. "But it already feels like they've been hiding something. No one just signs a lease for their grown daughter without asking. Not unless they have a reason." We pulled up to a small 2-story building tucked between a cafe and an old bookstore.
It was neat. Clean.
Boring, honestly. A small plaque out front read, Maplewood Studios. The windows on the second floor had thin curtains, the kind that let in light but block out privacy. Everything about it felt temporary, like something you'd live in for a season, not a chapter. I approached the door, key in hand. Yes, my parents had even made a copy for me, taped inside a card I hadn't opened yet. "Welcome home," it read. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The inside was fine. White walls. Compact kitchen. Tiny balcony. A twin bed already set up with sheets. My favorite mug sat on the counter. A bookshelf with a few of my novels lined up like someone had lovingly curated it. It didn't feel like an apartment, it felt like a setup. Like a stage designed to convince me this was my choice. I turned slowly. This was planned. Maya looked around. It's too perfect. This wasn't just last minute. Then we heard it. "Claire?" An older man stood in the open doorway, holding a bag of groceries.
"Oh, sorry.
Didn't realize today was move-in day." I blinked.
Hi.
"I'm Claire." He nodded kindly. "I'm Mr. Kirkland. I live across the hall. Your parents were here a few days ago, your mom and dad? Really sweet. They said their daughter was moving in soon and wouldn't make a fuss." I froze. "They were here?" "Oh yes," he said casually, placing the bag down. "They were finalizing the furniture. Said you were the quiet type, very responsible." Your mom was fussing over curtain colors. Maya shot me a look. I couldn't speak. They said you wouldn't mind the small space, Mr. Kirkland added. That it was time you had your own life again. I barely heard him. My ears were ringing. They'd been here, choosing curtains, picking where to put my books, building a home for me behind my back. Maya gently pulled me toward the window. Claire, this wasn't a backup plan. They've been doing this for weeks. Maybe longer. I couldn't breathe. I looked around the room again. Every little touch, every chosen item. It all screamed of my mother's planning, my father's quiet approval. Not a single decision was mine. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the springs creaking under me. They told Mr. Kirkland I wouldn't make a fuss. They plan around your reaction, Maya said. They knew you'd be upset. And they still did it anyway. I nodded slowly, everything clicking into place. This wasn't about helping me. It wasn't about independence. It was about control. And suddenly, another thought crept into my mind. If they'd been so carefully planning all this behind the scenes, what else were they planning? Back at the house, I remembered seeing boxes in the garage, not just my stuff, but old furniture, decorations, photo albums. Were they just making space for me to leave? Or were they making space for something else? I looked at Maya. I need to go home. You sure? Yeah, I said. If they went this far without telling me, what are they still hiding? Because now it wasn't just about being pushed out. It was about why. We drove in silence. The studio walls still felt like they were clinging to me, too clean, too prepared, like a lie wrapped in fresh paint and curtains. Mr. Kirkland's voice echoed in my mind. They said their daughter wouldn't make a fuss. They had expected me to go quietly. They had counted on it. I looked out the window as Maya drove, the roads blurring past. My hands were clenched in my lap, but it wasn't anger anymore. It was something deeper. Something that felt like betrayal's shadow. And more than that, suspicion. If they went that far to push me out, what were they making room for? The house came into view, and suddenly, it didn't feel like home. It felt like someone else's property, like I was trespassing. When I walked in, I didn't call out. I moved quietly, not wanting them to hear me. I went straight to the kitchen, then toward the garage. Boxes lined the walls, but not just mine. Stuff that had been part of our family for years. Mom's wedding china, the Christmas wreath, even Dad's ancient record player, was all tucked neatly into labeled containers. Why would they pack all that? I stepped back inside and headed to Dad's study. He never let anyone mess with his desk. But right now, I didn't care. I pulled open the top drawer. Pens. Sticky notes. Nothing unusual. Second drawer, bills, folders, a crumpled envelope. I picked it up. The subject line made my stomach twist. Follow-up, listing timeline and guest room conversion estimates. It was an email from a realtor, dated 3 weeks ago. Once your daughter moves into her new unit, we can begin staging her room for the remodel. I've attached the cost breakdown and proposed open house dates for early fall. I stopped reading. My heart was thudding in my ears. So that was it. This wasn't just about my space. This was about the house. My room wasn't mine anymore. It was a bullet point in a renovation plan. They weren't making room for me to grow. They were making room to sell. Suddenly, I heard footsteps. I turned to see Dad in the doorway, staring at me. "What are you doing in here?" he asked, not angry, just tired. I held up the letter. "Were you ever going to tell me?" He didn't speak right away. He stepped into the room, rubbing the back of his neck. "We didn't know how," he said finally. "We were going to wait until after you got settled in the studio. It just felt easier." "Easier?" I said, my voice breaking. "You were going to remodel my room, sell the house, and you didn't think I deserved to know?" "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Dad? Please, enlighten me." He sat down slowly in his chair, the one he used to read bedtime stories from. "Claire, we didn't do this to hurt you. We didn't expect you to be here this long. When you moved back in, we thought it would be for a few weeks. A couple months, maybe. And then what? Kick me out? Ship me off to a cozy studio like I'm a problem to manage." "We're getting older," he said. "Your mother's knees are bad. The stairs, the upkeep. We've been talking about downsizing for over a year. When you moved back in, it delayed things. But eventually we had to keep moving forward. And you couldn't tell me that? You couldn't sit me down and say, Claire, this is what we're planning? He looked down. We thought if we did, you'd feel like we didn't want you here. I laughed, sharp, bitter. You packed my life into boxes. I already feel like I was never really welcome. His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something raw in them. Regret? Maybe. But it didn't change the facts. You were always welcome, he whispered. But this was never meant to be permanent. I left the room before I cried again. Back in a hallway, I passed the wall where all our family pictures used to hang. Only a few were left now. The gaps between the frames looked like holes in my memory. I walked outside to catch my breath when I remembered something, Derek. My brother. Maybe he knew something more. Because if my parents were hiding this much, what else hadn't they told me? I didn't go back inside right away. I just sat on the porch steps, staring at the driveway like it could somehow answer all the questions still echoing in my mind. Every part of me felt numb, like I had walked through a storm and couldn't tell if the thunder was still coming or already past. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. There was still something missing, something that hadn't been said. So I called Derek. My brother didn't answer the first time, which wasn't unusual. He was always between meetings or on a deadline. But this time I didn't let it go. I called again, and again. Finally, on the third try, he picked up. Claire? What's up?
I didn't waste time.
Did you know about the studio? There was a pause. Sort of. I stood up, walking down the driveway so no one could hear me. Derek, I need you to be honest. How long have you known?
He sighed.
Mom mentioned it a few weeks ago. She said you were getting too used to being there. She said it was time. Too used to being there. The words burned. And the house? I asked. Did she tell you about the listing? The remodel? He was quiet again. Too quiet. Derek, I snapped. Don't protect them. Just tell me the truth. Another pause. Then finally, softly, Mom said you'd be gone by September. That they were aiming to start renovations right after that. My chest tightened. So this was never about giving me space. This was about getting rid of me in time for their project. I think she meant well, Claire, he said, trying to soften it. She said you were recovering, but it was dragging out. That she didn't want to pressure you, but she had to move forward. I closed my eyes. She told Mr. Kirkland I wouldn't make a fuss. She what? She planned every detail around me not pushing back. Around me going quietly. Derek sighed again, this time heavier. I don't know what to say. I should have told you. I thought maybe you knew. I didn't think they'd actually go behind your back. They didn't just go behind my back, I said, my voice shaking. They wrote me out of the plan, like I was a guest, not their daughter. I hung up before he could respond. I couldn't listen to another weak excuse. When I walked back inside, Mom was in the living room, carefully folding a throw blanket. Like everything was normal, like nothing had just cracked open. Did you talk to your brother? She asked without looking up. I did. She looked at me then, like she knew what was coming. Claire.
No, don't.
Just answer this, I said, my voice firm. Was I ever really welcome back here? Or was I just tolerated? That's not fair. No, Mom, I said, stepping closer. What's not fair is packing my life without asking. Making decisions for me, like I'm some inconvenience. Signing a lease. Planning renovations. And waiting until I was gone to tell me. You're an adult, she said quickly. We gave you time. We let you stay for months. But you didn't move forward. I was moving forward, I shouted. I was trying, but you didn't want me to get better here. You wanted me gone. Her face tightened, but she didn't deny it. She just said, we did our part, Claire. I laughed bitterly. Did you ever stop to think how this would make me feel? Losing a boyfriend, a job, my stability, and then my parents packing me up like I'm furniture they're donating. We didn't mean to hurt you, she said. But you did. I whispered. You didn't give me a choice. You gave me a deadline. The silence between us was heavy, unforgiving. And in that silence, something shifted in me. I wasn't going to wait for more apologies that never came. I wasn't going to beg for space in a home that had already closed its doors to me.
No.
Something needed to change.
Not them. Me.
Because if they had made their decision, then it was time I made mine. But this time on my terms. After that fight with my mom, something just broke open inside me. Not in a messy way. Not with screaming or tears. It was like a quiet snapping sound in my chest. A line had been crossed, and I couldn't go back. Not even if I wanted to. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling of the room that was half-packed, half-haunted by memories. My childhood posters were gone. My books were gone. Even my comforter had been folded and replaced with a plain beige one, probably meant for the studio. That's when it hit me. This wasn't my room anymore. It hadn't been for a while. And maybe that was the answer. The next morning, I called Maya. I need to find a place, I said simply. Not the studio. Something I choose. Something that's mine. Say less, she said. I've got a friend whose roommate just left town. It's a 2-bedroom, close to everything, and the lease is short-term to start. I'll text you the details. I breathed out for the first time in days. Thank you. Later that afternoon, I walked downstairs. My parents were in the kitchen, talking softly about groceries or paint colors. I honestly didn't care. I stood at the entryway and said, I'm moving out. They both turned. I'm not going to the studio, I added. You can cancel it. Or keep it. Whatever you want. But I found my own place. I'm moving on my terms. Dad opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. No lectures, I said. You made your choices without me. I'm doing the same. My mother frowned, but there was something else in her eyes. Maybe confusion, maybe guilt. Where will you go? To a friend's, I said. Just until I get settled. Claire, Dad started. I'm not doing this to punish you. I interrupted, my voice steady. I'm doing it because I need to stop hoping this house will ever feel like mine again. It won't. And that's okay. Mom looked like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. Later that night, after I packed the rest of my things my way, I sat on my bed and wrote them a letter. Not because I thought they deserved it, but because I needed to say it out loud. Dear Mom and Dad, I'll always be your daughter. But this home stopped being mine the moment decisions were made without me. I understand now, you weren't trying to be cruel. You were trying to make space for your next chapter. And now I need to make space for mine. You taught me how to be independent. I just wish you'd trusted me to do it without being pushed. I'm not angry anymore. Just ready. Claire. I left it on the kitchen table. Maya helped me move the next day. Her friend's apartment wasn't fancy. Peeling paint on the windowsills, creaky floors. But when I walked in with my suitcase and saw the sunlight hitting the wooden floor, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. I set my boxes down and looked around. This space was mine. No one had chosen the curtains. No one had folded my clothes. No one had whispered about timelines behind my back. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I spent the evening unpacking the things that mattered most, my favorite books, a picture of me and Maya at the beach, and a few keepsakes Mom had boxed without asking. I placed them on the new shelves, arranging them how I wanted. As I set down an old snow globe from my childhood, I paused. For a second, I thought about my parents, what they might be doing. Whether they were finally talking about the truth or pretending everything was fine. I didn't know. And for once, I didn't need to. Because maybe healing doesn't always start with an apology. Sometimes it starts with a boundary. And this time it was mine. But just when I thought the door had finally closed on that chapter, something unexpected was about to open it again. And I had no idea what was waiting on the other side. The first morning in my new place was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that hurts, but the kind that lets you breathe. Sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, warming the old tiles as I made coffee. My coffee, in my favorite mug. No one had packed it for me this time. No one decided where it should go. I had chosen the shelf, the cup, the morning. And that small act felt like a revolution. Maya dropped by with bagels and a new shower curtain. bright yellow with tiny sunflowers. "For new beginnings," she said, grinning. We sat on the floor eating breakfast off paper towels, surrounded by half-open boxes and the smell of fresh hope. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was waiting for someone to save me or approve of my decisions. I didn't feel like a guest in my own life. Later, as I unpacked the last box, I found a few things my mom had packed herself: old birthday cards, my childhood journal, and a framed picture of the three of us at a lake when I was 10. I stared at it for a long time. They had packed it gently. I didn't know what that meant. Part of me still ached for the version of home I thought I had. The version where love came with trust and decisions were made together. But another part of me, stronger now, knew that love wasn't always tidy. Sometimes it came with walls and mistakes and silence where there should have been conversation. Still, I couldn't pretend it didn't hurt. I placed the photo on my new nightstand, not out of guilt, but because it was still part of me. That moment at the lake, that smile, it was real, even if everything had changed. That night, as I curled up in my new bed, surrounded by books and quiet, I whispered something to the dark. Maybe they meant well. Maybe they didn't. But I finally chose myself. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like home.
I thought that was the end.
I thought the chapter was closed. But then, a few weeks later, my phone rang. It was Derek. He never called unless something was wrong. "Hey," I said cautiously. He hesitated. "Claire, Mom's been asking about you a lot lately. And, there's something you need to know about the new family moving into the house." I sat up straighter. "What do you mean?" He exhaled, his voice low. "It's not what you think. There's something else going on. You should probably come by." And just like that, the door I had closed creaked open again. Because apparently the story wasn't quite over. When Derek said, "You should probably come by," my stomach dropped. I hadn't been back to the house since the day I left. I told myself it was for closure, for peace. But the truth was, I wasn't ready to face them, or the shell of what that house had become. Still, something in his voice made it impossible to ignore. So the next afternoon, I drove back. I pulled up slowly, unsure if I should park in the driveway or on the street. The for sale sign was gone now, replaced with a cheerful welcome home banner taped to the porch railing. That hurt a little more than I expected. Derek was waiting out front, arms crossed, eyes a little softer than usual. He didn't smile. "Thanks for coming," he said. I nodded, unsure of what to say. He led me around back, past the garden Mom used to tend, and into the garage. I braced myself for more boxes. Instead, he handed me a folder, thick, a little worn at the edges. "What's this?" I asked. "Something I found after you left," he said. "It's kind of why I called." I opened it slowly, expecting property listings or renovation blueprints.
But it wasn't that.
Inside were emails, letters, medical forms. The first was from a neurologist, addressed to my dad. Subject: cognitive decline assessment. Early indicators consistent with mild dementia. My breath caught. I flipped to the next page, a timeline. Doctor visits. Medication schedules. All dated over the past 6 months. 6 months. Right around the time they started pushing me out. I looked up at Derek, confused. "Why didn't they tell me?" "They didn't want you to worry," he said. "They thought they could handle it quietly, that it'd get worse slowly. But it hasn't." I sat down on the step. Suddenly, all the rushed decisions, the studio, the remodeling, they weren't just about convenience or pushing me out. They were about preparing.
Simplifying.
Letting go of pieces of the house before the house let go of them. "They weren't trying to hurt you, Claire," Derek added quietly. "They just didn't know how to ask for help. Especially not from you. Not when you were already struggling." Tears welled up before I could stop them. All this time, I thought they didn't want me. I thought I was a burden, a guest, a problem they were eager to solve. But maybe they were just scared. Scared I'd see the cracks before they were ready to admit they were breaking. I closed the folder gently, hands shaking. Maybe this wasn't the end after all. Maybe the chapter one thought I had closed was still waiting for a different kind of ending. One written with understanding, not just hurt.